Tywin Lannister is often seen as one of the most competent leaders in Game of Thrones, but how good is he really? How good is Tywin Lannister overall as a leader? Welcome back to Shade Cinema. My name is Chris and today's video is the first part of an 8-part mini-series that will determine who truly is the best leader in Game of Thrones. I uploaded the pilot of this video series earlier today, which details each leadership quality that I'll be covering and how the point system works. But here's a quick summary. There are 8 leadership qualities and each will be evaluated based on these qualities. If they have it, they get 2 points. If they kind of have it, they get 1 point. And if they don't have it, they get 0 points. Their points will then give us a total score out of 16. For visual purposes, I'll place them in a tier list to better illustrate their rank. If you haven't seen the pilot episode, I highly suggest you go watch it before you continue, as I go into detail about what each quality means and what would qualify a leader to get 2 points for each quality. Anyway, let's get started. Tywin's strategic intelligence is fairly undisputed. He understood the big picture better than anyone in Westeros, brought House Lannister back from the brink after his father Tytos fucked it up badly. He was the hand for 3 kings, although he was only around for really 2 of them. He won the War of the 5 Kings for the crown after engineering the Red Wedding, and who can forget about the Rains of Castamere? However, he relies heavily on fear as a way to deter any rebellions, which can backfire if the crown begins to lose grip over the kingdom. And although he attempts to name Jaime as his heir, he fails to do so, leaving the Lannister succession in question, or worse, the Lannister inheritance goes to Cersei. Even with his flaws, I believe that Tywin gets a 2 out of 2 here. His wins outweigh any flaws that he has in his strategies. Tywin is very calm in times of crisis and makes decisive calls when he doesn't have much time to act. A perfect example is when both of his sons were captured, he immediately mobilized his troops to save them. He saved King's Landing from Stannis when he arrived with Lannister troops just in time, and was responsible for the Red Wedding, in order to win the war as he was getting his butt kicked by Robb on the battlefield. But Tywin also defaults to brutality far too often when dealing with immediate threats, like when he sent the Mountain to, dispose of the Targaryen heirs, and his decisive nature leaves little room for moral choices. Ultimately, I'd still give Tywin 2 points here. Although he can be brutal, his decisiveness has granted House Lannister many victories, so 2 more points for Papa T. I'm just gonna say it. Tywin is one of the biggest aura farmers in the series. He commands every room that he's in, he's the richest man in Westeros, and everyone listens to what he has to say. The guy sent the king to bed for God's sake. Everyone under his web is his bitch. The loyalty of his followers comes from fear and admiration, which is a powerful combo. At the same time, his followers aren't devoted to him in the same way as, let's say, Jon or Dany. As I said before, Tywin heavily relies on fear to gain followers, and that loyalty is gone once the fear is gone, and his charisma is cold and calculating, not the kind that inspires or rallies others to his cause. His influence goes far and wide, and despite his flaws, I'll give Tywin 2 points here as well. Tywin is someone who cares heavily about his family, his house, and his legacy, and he will sacrifice his personal comfort for the sake of duty. But that's really it. If you think about his moral framework, he doesn't really have one beyond that. He's pragmatic to a fault, he's consistent in his beliefs, but consistency alone is not a moral framework. He's not a moral man, he's just a man with a calculator. For example, even though he's disgusted by Loras Tyrell's proclivities, he would still have him serve in the King's Guard. And he refuses to believe the rumors about his kids, not because it's gross, but because it might undermine his power base if it turns out to be true. For all those reasons, I'm giving Tywin a big fat 0 here. Tywin is someone who rarely gets angry, which keeps him level-headed when making decisions. He doesn't lose composure when insulted, but rather plays into it or retaliates in a calm demeanor. He manages to keep his ego in check when out in public. However, in private, Tywin rages, mainly towards his kids or his family members. This is when his ego comes out. He gets especially angry with Tyrion because of the death of his wife, which Tyrion inadvertently caused while being born, which is an irrational thought process. So publicly, Tywin is calm. Privately, he can get emotional and irrational. For that, I give Tywin 1 point here. Tywin is fantastic at playing the political game. He's a master manipulator, secures opportune alliances with the Tyrells, the Martells, Littlefinger, Walder Frey, Roose Bolton, and many others. He understands the role that incentives, fear, and leverage play in establishing alliances. He plays the political game internally and externally, like when he was the Hand of the King for Aerys, Joffrey, and Tommen, and the way he would farm marriages for his children, which includes his daughter marrying King Robert. However, he relies on intimidation in his politics, which can create enemies faster than allies in the long run. It's pretty obvious, but Tywin gets a 2 here. Tywin's adaptability is well showcased in the show. After many losses to Robb Stark in the field, Tywin switched his plans from waging a physical war to waging a political war, such as the Red Wedding. He was at war with the Tyrells until Renly's death and turned them into uneasy allies who helped the crown with gold and grain. He switched from being a neutral loyalist during Robert's rebellion to being at the head of the army that sacked King's Landing. All of these show that he's willing to change his outdated strategies as soon as a better one presents itself. Although he adapts externally, he doesn't adapt internally. Even though Tyrion is the most capable statesman out of his children, he still treats him like trash. Although he gave him the position of Hand, he still heavily disrespected him despite the fact that Tyrion did well in that role. All in all, Tywin deserves a 2 here. His exploits during the War of the Five Kings finalized the Lannisters as the undisputed masters of Westeros for a good amount of time. Last but not least is Tywin's results and track record, which are pretty stacked. He wins the War of the Five Kings and restores Lannister dominance over the realm after it nearly collapsed. His descendants become monarchs, and he is feared and remembered as one of the most powerful men in Westerosi history. However, his family goes to shit after he dies, and Lannister power dwindles without him. His lack of a proper successor upended his plans to set his family up forever. But I don't think most of those problems are his fault necessarily. How people handle the empire he built after his departure falls more on the inheritors of said empire rather than Tywin himself. So for me, Tywin gets a 2 in this category as well. This gives him a grand total of 13 out of 16 points, which puts him firmly in the GOAT tier. Tywin is an ultimate pragmatist. He values function over form in pretty much every aspect, and his sole goal has always been to elevate the name of his house and to keep it elevated for as long as possible. If it means that he has to be brutal in the ways he achieves victory, then so be it. If it means making very elaborate plans to destroy his enemies, often in immoral ways, then so be it. He truly is a mastermind. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to not miss the next video. Comment down your thoughts below and how you would have ranked Tywin and the other characters that will be shown in the series. And now it's time to reveal next week's character, which is